Hello there, everyone. How are you all doing today? I hope you are all well. Today I will be reading a creepypasta titled The Glowing Tunnel, written by Erutious on Reddit. Please check out the original story in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Count Julius Productions. My brother and I work for a cleaning company in our hometown. We're both still in high school. He's a junior and I'm a senior. So it was either this or fast food. The owner is a friend of Dad's. We'll call him Chuck to protect the innocent. Chuck is a nice enough guy. My brother and I have known him since we were young, but he leaves a lot to be desired as a businessman. Please don't misunderstand. The guy makes money, but he seemed to think that employee safety comes after profit. My brother and I worked like dogs for him all summer, cleaning out people's yards and moving boxes out of abandoned houses. Anything to make a buck, I suppose. It was nearing July when Chuck got a call from another of his friends, Philip O'Dare. If Chuck is a little underhanded in his business practices, then Philip is a goddamn pirate. He's the town's #1 real estate agent, and I mean everything when I say that he sells everything. He owns a pawn shop, broke brokers with his younger brother. When he wasn't out selling houses, he was looking for homes to buy. The homes he picks up are rough most of the time. If he were selling them as fixer-uppers, that would be okay. But the problem is that after he picks up these houses for next to nothing, he does shoddy, brain-dead repairs on them, then sells them for top prices, usually to pick them back up a few years later when the occupants move out in disgust. My current situation is thanks to part to Philip's underhanded renovation and Chuck's less than stellar business sense. The folks say place, I said. I didn't even know Mr. Folksy was dead. Chuck looked up from his notepad, his gray hair making him look like a cloud with glasses. He's not. Folksy's son sent him to Golden View and sold his house to O'Dare Real Estate. That made me a little sad, and Mr. Foxy had been my English teacher when I was in middle school, and he had also taught Dad when he was an 8th grader. My brother had not been what you would call advanced English compatible, so he didn't get him, but Dad and I both agreed that Mr. Foskey was the best. He always had such cool lesson plans and exciting books in his class library. He challenged his advanced students to be more than a title and wanted us to be more than just A+ students. I was sad to hear that he had been fired 2 years ago. He had started to go a little senile in his own old age. Everyone said so, and his taste in books had always been a little, shall we say, esoteric. After he had been fired, he had become a hermit. He only came out at night, and word around town was he had taken to going through people's garbage. What he sought was anybody's guess, but people who came to visit him said his house was full of junk. Now he was gone, off to the mental hospital in the next town, and we were left to clean up his house. Phil says to save anything that looks valuable. Apparently the guy had a ton of old books that were probably worth money. Foskey's son sold Phil the house and everything in it, so don't bother saving anything sentimental. Couple weeks in the puzzle factory and the old man probably won't remember his own name. I left before I could say anything stupid. The thought of a brilliant man like Mr. Foskey losing his mind in a place like Golden View made me sick at the time. Now, I may be thinking that is exactly what he deserves. We arrived at the house at 6 a.m. Philip was waiting for us, a cell phone against his ear, and a latte in his other hand. He was dressed in his usual blue suit, and I imagined we looked pretty shabby next to him in our jeans and black t-shirts with the company name on them. My brother had rolled the sleeves on his up, the motorcycle boots peeking from beneath the cuff of his jeans. He was going through some kind of James Dean phase, but it really just made him look like an extra in Grease. We waited for Philip to finish, and when he did, he looked at us like we were in his way. "Well, what are you waiting for?" "A breakdown of what we're doing," I said a little hotly. He scoffed. "I thought you boys were smart. Clean the damn house and save what can be sold. Old bastard built the house 5 years ago after his kids moved out. It's a 1-bed, 1-bath, and I have a client who wants to see it by Wednesday. So if you could not take all week about it, that would be great. We'll take a look and let you know by the end of the day, okay?" Philip scoffed, clearly saving all that charm for his clients. "Just have it done. I'll pay you double if you could do it by Wednesday. You, not your boss." That was a tempting offer. Chuck was great, but he tended to be a little light with the checks. We were being paid under the table, so we couldn't really argue, but some extra cash would be sweet. I shook Philip's hand and said we would have it done by Wednesday. He nodded and left, the sound of his T-bird cutting up the road as he went. I immediately regretted my words when I saw the inside of the house. The house had a strange floor plan. There was a living room and dining room with a bar that overlooked them from the kitchen. Off the kitchen was a bathroom and a door to get to the outback where you could sit in a small backyard. Off the living room was another door that I guessed was a bedroom. The house had a strange sort of feel to it, and when I came inside, I could believe that such a place would draw Mr. Foskey to it. It was eccentric in a practical way, a way that he would understand. The living room/dining room was full of trash and furniture, stuffed floor to ceiling. I could see little walkways from the living room to the kitchen. The kitchen was spared the worst of it, but it was still covered in garbage. The floor had a solid foot of garbage on it. The cabinets were covered in old food wrappers and the refrigerator seemed clean, but the door wouldn't even open due to the junk. The cabinets were stuffed with garbage, and I sighed and thought about the job at hand. This looked like a good week's worth of work between the living room and the kitchen alone. "I'll take the kitchen, you take the living room. Whoever finishes first will help with the other." My brother scoffed. "Why do you get the kitchen?" I rolled my eyes. "I see a lot of furniture in there, football star. You got Dad's build, so you do the heavy lifting." He scoffed. "And you got Mom's build, so I guess you're the bitch ass in the kitchen," he said with a laugh. We put on our respirators, rubber boots, and thick gloves. We hadn't seen anything that would make us break out the hazmat suits yet, but I like to be safe. We were definitely working with some old refuse, probably refuse that had been outside, which means that rodents were a danger, as were insects. We had cleaned out a shed like this not even a month ago, and ran upon a secret hornet's nest that had made us wary about attacking big mounds of trash, so I was careful to look where I was putting my hands as I started in the kitchen. I got lucky. The trash was mostly dry and clean, and was just easily bagged. I heard my brother straining and grunting in the living room, and looked out to see him wrestling with some sizable pieces of furniture. He was dragging them out onto the lawn. Philip had a mobile storage unit waiting out front, and then loading them into the unit. I watched him groan as he tried to lift an antique dining room table, which had been a linchpin of a large pile of garbage before going to help him. The pile fell over as we freed the table, and I helped him lug it over to the yard. This is how we spent our day until mid-afternoon. By 4, I had all the garbage out of the kitchen. My brother had gotten most of the furniture out of the living room and was wiping sweat from his brow as he stuffed papers into a bag. "Doesn't this guy have AC?" he asked, out of breath. "I haven't seen a thermostat. Maybe it's in his bedroom?" My brother stood up and walked to the door coming out of the living room. As he opened it up, I heard him whistle, and came over to see what he had found. Inside the bedroom was a tunnel of solid junk. It snaked to the left, getting dim inside, and the tunnel looked as though someone had cut it out of solid junk amalgamation. "You sure you want to go in there?" I asked. He just rolled his eyes and took a pin light out of his pocket. "This shouldn't take long," he said, and tromped into the room. I stood for a few seconds, making sure the whole pile wouldn't just fall over. I went back to work in the kitchen. I should have gone with him. Maybe been a bit more attentive, but I was in a hurry and really wanted to look at the bathroom before quitting time. I got all the garbage out of the cabinet, stuffing 6 bags with nothing but trash. I unearthed the sink and the microwave and had started cleaning the countertops when I noticed something wasn't right. The trash was still in the same place my brother had left it, and the door to the bedroom still hung open. Was he still in there? There was no way it would take an hour to navigate the bedroom and find the thermostat. I called his name into the bedroom, and the name almost seemed to echo down the trash hole, but I got no answer. It was starting to get close to sunset, and I really wanted to be out of there before dark. Maybe thinking he had fallen or gotten hurt in there, I grabbed a headlamp out of the car and headed into the trash maze. I turned the corner, and there was bombarded by claustrophobia of the trash tunnel. The tunnel was a solid mass of trash that seemed almost sculpted. It was like someone had built a wall out of mortar and trash, and then cut a tunnel out of it. There was a soft light coming from the trash wall, and when I turned off the headlights, I found that I could see. The dim light seemed to be coming from something inside the wall, but even with the headlight on, I couldn't tell what it was. It made navigating the strangely winding maze a little easier, but the size started to unsettle me as I moved. The bedroom was supposed to be a 12 by 12, but this maze seemed to be winding on farther than the whole house. I had been taking turns for several minutes when I came upon my first strange sight. Coming around a bend, I came face to face with a small library. The small grotto held 4 bookshelves, stuffed with old-looking books. Many of them had covers covered in mold, and as I got closer, I could see bugs moving across them. I backed away and kept walking, not sure how deep this rabbit hole went, but wanting to be out more and more with every step. I kept looking down periodically, seeing if I could find a print from my brother's big rubber boots in the dust. I was looking for any sign that he'd passed this way. Then I had come up with nothing so far. Then I came upon the old man. I turned a corner and found myself in a 10 by 10 park with honest-to-God grass, a lamp post that was on, and a park bench. An old man was sat on it, feeding real pigeons, and as I approached, he patted the bench, as though he wanted me to sit. One look at the old guy told me that I did not want to sit there. He dressed in a long coat that looked patched and frayed. A fuzzy cap obscured his face. He patted the seat again as I approached, but I had already decided that I would not stop. The whole situation was a little creepy, and as I intended to just walk on by and continue on my way, when his hand shut out and grabbed me, I nearly jumped a foot. His hand was covered in a thick green mold, and when he looked up, I could see the same mold growing on his face. He grinned his gap-toothed smile at me, and for a moment I thought it was Mr. Foskey. His grip was firm but moist, and when I pulled away, his hand slipped off, and he sat there, grinning at me. Something clamped down on my ankle then, and then I looked down to see that he was feeding rats. These were wharf rats too, no cute pet shop mice, and they were trying to scuttle up my rubber boots. I kicked out at them and turned to run. The old man was standing then, a creaky moan coming from his dusty throat. But I was out of the park and into the tunnel again. I ran flat, and as I ran, I imagined I could see the lights in the wall reaching out for me. Their brightness came reaching out towards me, and I ducked away from them as I came. The tunnel seemed to nightmarishly claustrophobic as I ran. I began taking turns at random. I had no idea where I was or where I was going. I only knew that I wanted to be out. I prayed that this tunnel would end, and that I would flop onto the carpet in the dirty living room, and that my brother would be waiting for me. He would wonder where I had been, and what had taken me so long, and we would leave and never come back to this place again. Screw O'Dare, and screw his money. As I stopped, panting and clutching a stitch in my side, I just wanted to be out. And then I heard the footsteps. They echoed strangely up the tunnel, and they filled me with a deep sense of dread. Was it the old man coming after me? Some new horror? I didn't know, but the steps were heavy and ominous, and I knew that I did not want them to find me. I hid around the corner in a little trash alcove, and shuddered at my cowardice. I was shaking all over. The footsteps were slow and knowing. I just knew that it was some kind of new monster that wanted me. It was some mold monster that was trying to invade me like it had invaded the old man. It was the old man who wanted to breathe spores into me and infect me. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't care. At that moment, I just wanted to leave, and I was willing to kill to get out of here. Clomp, clomp, clomp. I saw a rock on the ground. Clomp, clomp, clomp. It looked like a jagged, broken paving stone. Clomp, clomp, clomp. I picked it up and held it against my chest. Clomp, clomp, clomp. I closed my eyes and steeled myself for what I was about to do. Clomp, clomp, clomp. I rounded the corner, and I swung the stone, and it connected with something that immediately staggered back, bellowing. I swung again, but it hit me around the waist and drove me to the ground. I dropped the rock in the skirmish, and as it rolled away, I felt hands close around my throat. It was choking me, choking my life out of me. And as I groped around, I could see little black swirls at the corner of my vision. I swung my fist at it, but without oxygen, it was a weak swing at best. I went back to groping, trying to find something, and then finally, my hand settled on something hard and jagged. I grabbed the rock and swung out, filling my lungs with air as the hands loosened and the shape fell over. I lifted the rock and swung it down at the shape, hitting it in the head. I straddled it, swinging again and again and again, until it finally stopped moving. I was choking again. I could not find air. I was straddling a human being, his face mostly caved in, but the rolled up shirt sleeves were a dead giveaway. He was wearing our shirt. the shirt with the two happy moving men on the front. And as I threw the rock away, the tears began to flow. I jumped off of him and ran, leaving him in the tunnel to God only knew what. I ran in a blind panic. I ran until I couldn't anymore and kept running. I ran until my legs burned and my lungs heaved. I bumped into walls and saw them crumble around me. As they fell, I felt the trash envelop me. I embraced the entombing refuse as my fate. I had killed my brother. I deserved to be encased in garbage for all eternity. I deserved it. I deserved it. I could see flashing lights and was aware of being carried. I opened my eyes to see two paramedics rolling me into an ambulance, and a panicked Chuck followed close behind. Philip was there too, but he looked more aggravated than worried. As we drove away in the ambulance, I looked around, and they seemed to become aware that I wasn't unconscious. "What happened?" I asked, and the two of them filled me in. Philip had come after dark to check on our progress. After finding most of the house still cluttered, he called Chuck to tell him to get down here. The house was still a disaster, and his workers were nowhere to be found. And when Chuck arrived, they found me passed out in the living room under a pile of garbage. They called the paramedics, fearing I had broken my neck, and had them come check me out. Paris said, "You're lucky to be alive, honestly," said Chuck, and Philip elbowed him, wanting him to shut up. "Why?" I said hoarsely. He said the whole place was crawling with black mold. It was around the crown of the ceiling, the baseboard. Hell, the whole place was ate up. It's a good thing your brother left early, eh? I told Chuck I didn't remember him leaving. I told him about the bedroom, the tunnel, and the strange things I'd seen there. I don't think Chuck believed me, but they did go back to the house to look for him. They came to see me at the hospital later and told me they hadn't seen hide nor hair of him. He wasn't at my home, they'd called Dad, and his truck was still at Chuck's shop. They didn't know where he was, but they were sure he would turn up. I didn't answer them. A week later, they let me go, and I went back to the house. It's still a mess. The guys Philip got to clean it aren't as diligent as my brother and me, but they aren't great at leaving doors unlocked. I stood before the bedroom door like I expected it to open on its own and suck me in. It didn't. And when I finally opened it, I found not a tunnel, but a cluttered bedroom on the other side. Not a bed, just a bedroom. No tunnel. No monsters. Just a bedroom. It's been 2 weeks and nobody has seen my brother. He's lying dead in some weird trash tunnel, with his head caved in. A part of me knows this, but a part of me also knows there is no trash tunnel behind that door. I don't know what to do. Dad is getting worried. The police have no leads, and I can't find the tunnel. I killed him. It's my fault. But if I tell people this story, they're going to lock me in Golden View right along with Mr. Foskey. I went to visit him a few days ago. No one monitors who is visiting the residents of Golden View. When I asked him about the trash tunnel and the glowing mold, he just stared at me blankly. I begged him to tell me, screamed at him to help me find my brother, but whatever light was in Mr. Foskey when I was in English class is now gone forever. Now he just sits in the day room and watches soap opera with the rest of them. I don't know what to do. How do I get him back? What will happen the next time whatever poor sap who buys that house opens the bedroom door? Will they see the familiar bedroom? Or will they be the next victim of the glowing tunnel? I fear to think about it. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.